What does it mean for a matrix to be positive? We know since elementary school what it means for a real number to be positive. For example, 2 is a positive number, minus 3 is not. But what about matrices? Can we find a sensible, useful definition of what it means for a matrix to be positive? The goal of this video is to show that the answer is yes. And make no mistake, this new definition that we will see is not simply a mathematical curiosity. In fact, this new definition has enabled a whole new field of mathematics called Semidefinite Programming with some unexpected and frankly mind-boggling applications to science and engineering. Here are, by order of difficulty, 3 math questions that we will attack using this new notion. The first question is from geometry. Consider 3 unit vectors x, y, and z and assume that the inner product between each pair of vectors is the same, and let's call the common value of this inner product alpha. In other words, assume that if you project x on y, y on z, or z on x, the signed length of the projection is the same, alpha. And now the question is, what is the smallest possible value for alpha? We already know that alpha is between -1 and 1. And the following configuration, where all the vectors are orthogonal to each other, shows that alpha can take the value 0. So the minimum value of alpha is somewhere between -1 and 0, but what is it exactly? The second question is from dynamical system theory. Given a square matrix A, can you tell whether the linear dynamical system given by xk plus 1 equals A times xk is asymptotically stable? That is, can you prove or disprove that for any given initial condition, if you keep multiplying by A, you always converge to 0? The third and last question I wanted to show you is about finding good solutions to NP-hard problems. For example, in the famous max cut problem, you are given a graph, and you want to cut the nodes in 2 sets in such a way that the value of this cut, or in other words, the number of edges that the cut goes through, is as high as possible. This is an NP-hard problem, which means that it is highly unlikely that an efficient algorithm for finding the best possible cut exists. Can you think of an algorithm that finds a good enough cut? Or in other words, can you find a cut whose value is at least, let's say, 0.8 of the value of the maximal cut? I totally concede that this is somewhat vague question at this point. But trust me, the solution technique is so beautiful that it was impossible for me not to include this question in this video. Amazingly, all of these questions were reduced to finding a particular positive matrix that satisfies some conditions. And if you're curious about this new definition of matrix positivity and you're wondering how it is even possible to use this notion to tackle so many different problems that are not even about matrices in the first place, then this is the perfect video for you. The only prerequisite you will need is some familiarity with the basics of linear algebra. If you know what a vector is, what a matrix is, and what it means to multiply matrices and vectors together, then you're good to go. So, how can we generalize positivity for matrices? As usual in mathematics, to find the right generalization of some concept like positivity, you need to look at it from the right perspective. Sure, we could define positivity element-wise. We could define a matrix to be positive if all of its entries are positive. But this definition is not really satisfying because it does not use the matrix structure in any meaningful way. What I mean by that is that we could rearrange all the terms in a column vector, a row vector, or even in a box. The definition would still go through. There is a much more useful definition of positivity for matrices, and more specifically for symmetric matrices, that takes into account the matrix structure. Why only symmetric matrices, you might ask? Well, it turns out that with the symmetric assumption, the math just becomes particularly nice, and most of the cases of interest in practice involve symmetric matrices anyway. So, what makes a matrix is not the fact that it is a table of values, but rather it is the fact that it is a linear operator that acts on vectors. It takes as input a vector x and spits out another vector y equals A times x. To gain some intuition, consider the special case where the matrix A is 1 by 1, that is, a number. If A is positive, for example equal to 2, you can think of multiplication by A as a stretching operation. On the other hand, if A is negative, for example -2, then you can think of multiplication by A as a reflection about the origin and then a stretching. So positive numbers, when you think of them as operators, are really the ones that keep their output on the same side as their input. With this in mind, we define a matrix A to be positive if for any non-zero vector x, the vector y that A outputs stays on the same side as x. In other words, the inner product between x and A times x should be positive. And to make it clear that we're talking about positivity for matrices and not numbers, we will call such a matrix positive definite. If the inner product between x and ax is only non-negative, we call the matrix A in that case positive semi-definite. Before we move any further, let's look at some special cases to get a feel for this new definition. The identity matrix, for example, is positive definite. This is because if you multiply the identity from the left and the right by some non-zero vector x, you get x transpose x, which is the sum of the entries of x squared, which is positive. You can also directly argue that the identity is positive definite because it does not change its input. So obviously the input and the output fall on the same side. Now let's take a look at a diagonal matrix that is not necessarily the identity. To be able to tell whether it's positive definite, let's multiply it on the left and the right by some non-zero vector x. In this case, we get the sum of the diagonal elements times the square of the entries of x. If all the diagonal elements are positive, then this diagonal matrix is positive definite. If one or more entries is 0, then it is only positive semi-definite. And if at least one of the diagonal entries is negative, then this matrix is not even positive semi-definite. And here you might wonder if that characterization is true for non-diagonal symmetric matrices as well. To know if a symmetric matrix is positive semi-definite, can we just check if the diagonal entries are non-negative? This is actually false. For example, this symmetric matrix has positive diagonal entries, but you can easily check that when you multiply by the vector 1, 1 from the left and the right, which corresponds to, and this is a good trick to know, summing up all the entries of the matrix, -2. So this matrix is not positive semi-definite. So it turns out that the right numbers to look at are not the diagonal elements, but rather the eigenvalues of the matrix. Recall that eigenvalues are numbers lambda that satisfy A times u equals lambda u for some non-zero vector u, which is known as the eigenvector. You see, for diagonal matrices, the diagonal elements are exactly the eigenvalues, but that stops being true for non-diagonal matrices. Let's see what being positive semi-definite means for eigenvectors and eigenvalues. By definition, if you apply A to an eigenvector u, it gets multiplied by an eigenvalue lambda. If lambda is negative, u simply gets scaled. And if lambda is negative, u gets reflected and then scaled. So the only way for matrices to be positive semi-definite is if all of its eigenvalues are non-negative. The converse, although we won't have time to prove, is also true. If all the eigenvalues are non-negative, then the matrix is positive semi-definite. This new characterization is important because it gives us one algorithmic way of checking matrix positivity. It reduces the task of checking whether a matrix is positive semi-definite to checking whether a bunch of numbers, the eigenvalues, are non-negative. For example, the eigenvalues of this matrix that we have seen before are 5 and -1, which is negative, so this matrix is not positive semi-definite. To recap what we have seen up to now, we have defined positive semi-definite matrices to be the ones that satisfy xax non-negative for any non-zero vector x, and we showed that this is equivalent to non-negativity of the eigenvalues. And note that this generalizes, as you would expect, to positive definite matrices. It's now time to put this knowledge to good use, so to end this video, let's reinforce our geometrical understanding of positive semi-definite matrices by looking at sets that are described by matrix inequalities. And let's start with scalar inequalities. For example, let's look at triplets xyz that satisfy x non-negative, y non-negative, z non-negative, and x plus y plus z smaller or equal than 1. These inequalities describe a pyramid-like set. You know you are dealing with scalar inequalities because the faces of this set are flat. Moving on, what if we look now at inequalities that involve matrices of size strictly bigger than 1? For example, for what values of x this matrix is positive semi-definite? It's not very hard to check that the eigenvalues of this matrix are 1 plus x and 1 minus x. So for it to be positive semi-definite, we need x to be at least -1 and at most 1. So a single matrix inequality can be rewritten as few scalar inequalities. Is this always true? Is matrix inequality simply a compressed version of multiple scalar inequalities? As we will see with the next example, that is not true. Matrix positivity is a much more powerful concept than just a mere collection of scalar inequalities. Let's look at the set of triplets xyz for which this matrix is positive semi-definite. Writing out the eigenvalues in terms of x, y, and z is possible but very cumbersome. But for any particular values of x, y, and z, we can easily check if the eigenvalues of the corresponding matrix are non-negative or not. For example, for the triplet 0, 0, 0, this matrix has a single eigenvalue equal to 1, so that triplet is inside our set. On the other hand, for the triplet 2, 2, 2, the eigenvalues are the numbers 5 and -1, so this triplet is outside our set. And by looking at all possible triplets, we can see what kind of set a matrix inequality like this one can describe. And that's where things get interesting. Triplets xyz that satisfy this matrix inequality, or geometrically the set composed of all the green dots, is called an elliptope, and it has some fascinating properties. Note in particular that its faces are not flat, so it cannot be expressed by the usual scalar inequalities. So positivity for matrices is a true generalization of positivity for scalars. And we will end things here for now, but stay tuned for the next video because that's where the magic will happen. We will see how to use this set to answer the first geometry question that I presented in this video. As usual, if you like the video, please like and subscribe, and see you next time.